Hello, welcome to my training, and it's day 11. And today I'm going to do positional play training from a certain book. Not gonna say which one. And let's begin from the game 1, which is supposed to be about weak pawns. And let's see what happened. So we had d4 knight f6, c4 g6, knight c3, d5, and now bishop g5. Grünfeld. Now black chose this one, and here it says bishop h4. c5 by black. Now cd5, knight c3 takes, and queen d5, e3, and now black can play knight c6 or bishop g7, but he went for cd4. And now the first interesting moment here. And now white captures with the queen. Now he attacks the rook on h8 and also attacks the queen, which means that more or less it's forced to exchange queens. For example, if cd4, then the bishop is missing out on the queen side, and you might want to consider moves like queen a5 and such things, or just at some point to deal with e5 as a move. And also here, after cd, ed, of course, this is losing the piece. So white captures with the queen. Now queen captures and cd. The c file is opened for the rooks, and now black cannot go just bishop g7 and castle because the e pawn is under some pressure, and black went for this. Bishop b5, bishop d7, and now just knight f3. Bishop g7, castles, and now e6 to be able to castle, because if you do it immediately, then you just lose the e pawn after castling. Bishop c6, bishop c6, bishop e7. So e6 is played, rook a b1, and now black finally castles, but there are issues. And now white reroutes the knight with this move. Tries to get to e4 and then to d6 or c5, which would put pressure on the queen side. So now black plays f5, which is very, very dubious, but it's stopping knight e4, so you can understand it in a way. If you try with h6, then bishop e2 first, and I guess if you go rook b8, you can go here, bishop g3, and after e5 you might have knight c4, even knight c4, and the pressure on e5 becomes quite nice. If you go here, then I have knight e6, and I can take on b7 at some point. So after h6, bishop e2, knight a5, and again knight e4, knight c5 is an idea, and white has some advantage. And now there are some other dangers in the position, I guess, because let's say after b6, it might allow knight d6 and bishop e7, which would mean that the rook on f8 is a bit unpleasant, and if it goes to b8 and bishop f3 comes, the rook on a8 is also kind of trapped. So it's a problem. It's a big problem. Okay, so he went for f5, which stops knight e4, but weakens the king side. And now white switches routes by knight b3, trying to go to c5, and that's why black plays b6, but now he weakens the control over the knight. And now white plays this, rook ac8, and now bishop a6. And now rook on c7 would not feel so safe, because you have bishop g3 and you at least win a pawn, but I think it's even more than that. It's an exchange, because if you go for e5, then there is a move like d5, and because of the pin on the c file, you cannot move the knight. The only hope might be that the bishop gets trapped somehow by f4, but I think you can just take it, and after, or just wait a sec, if you go here, you just move the bishop and play f3 next, and eventually you take the knight on c6. So yeah, this is the move, bishop b7 by white, and now the knight goes to d8, but this allows rook to go to c7 now, and if you take it, then rook takes b7 and you win the pawn on a7. So after this, black goes for rook f7, bishop a6, and now what happens? Bishop a4, rook bc1, just controlling the c file, bishop f8, and now rook 1 to c4. Okay. It says it's worse to play bishop c8 because of bishop d6, and now you cannot capture on d8 because you take on c7 and have this. So after bishop d6, rook f7, king f7, and black is holding on. Black is almost equalizing this. So here this is played. Takes. And now to defend this pawn on a7, black goes knight c6. Bishop c4. And now there's a threat of rook c8 connected with bishop e6. Bishop g7 by black, and now rook c8. Now white wins a pawn by force, practically speaking, and black took, bishop e6, king f8, and now bishop c8. the weakness on e6 was taken, and now this is the tougher part. Realization. What now? Knight b4. Now the big problem is that black has some queenside majority, 2 against 1, and there are some issues. Knight b4, knight c1 back, quite logical. King f7, bishop g3, and now bishop f8, trying to get the bishop into the game, and also stopping bishop d6, which would push the knight away. Bishop b7, and now king e6, bishop b8, king d7, and now bishop f3. Because if you take on a7 here, then you trap the bishop by bishop c6 and then king b7 next, and white's losing the bishop. So bishop f3, don't be greedy. Bishop b5, bishop d1 now, a5, a4, and after bishop c4, now g4 by white. The point is, after potential capture on g4, white has 2 passers in the center, and with 2 bishops, I think this could make it easier for white to advance his pawns. So black chose to not capture on g4, to keep it like this, to not allow 2 passers, but the second option was including weakening the pawn structure, and black went for b5, takes, and now black has a weak f5 pawn. And now bishop e5 is played, trying to get this bishop on the long diagonal and somehow to prevent the a pawn to queen. So yeah, bishop e5, knight c6, quite logical, but also I think much better was here to go for knight d5, just blocking the long diagonal. And yeah, you want to go knight c3 next to fork the pawn and the bishop. So probably white has to capture on b5, but that makes the a pawn quite dangerous. Went for this, and now bishop h8, bishop a3, and now ab. After which black has several choices. One of them is knight d4, and after bishop takes, bishop c1, bishop c2, bishop e6, defending the pawn, now b6, king c6, and now e4. Quite clever, because if you capture it, then bishop e4 and the b pawn becomes quite strong. After this, then just b7, and after this, bishop a7. And then you queen. So after e4, you can go f4, but that doesn't really do much, because after e5 you still have ideas like bishop e4 and or bishop h7. What's more resistant was bishop b5 after ab. Bishop takes b5 and after knight b3. To go king king d6. And if bishop c2, then to push the a pawn, and the a pawn becomes quite annoying after going back. Bishop b4, and the a pawn might run. Damn. So ab, bishop c1 was a mistake, and white took on c6, of course. King c6, bishop a4, and king d5. Actually, better was bishop b5. And if d5, king c5, bishop d4, king c4, bishop c2, because if you exchange it like this, the a pawn might just run. So after bishop c2, bishop d7, but still a pawn is quite a menace. So okay, let's go back. King d5 was played. Bishop c2 and king e6. King g2. Now he wants to go to g3, I guess, or and then to f4 to put pressure on f5. Bishop a3, bishop e5. Go here. Bishop b8. Bishop d5, and now f3. Although here it was better just to go king g3. And if bishop d6 to exchange bishops and then to push somehow this pawn, you just take it and take on f5. And you can afford to lose the bishop, because you have 4 pawns and black can barely hold these 3 pawns. And if you include the h pawn as well, it's becoming quite tough. So here f3 was played. Bishop b4, king g3, and now king f6. Here, if bishop d6 takes, now king f4. But wait, if bishop takes f5, this takes here. Isn't this the same? Isn't this just the similar position? But also you can go king f4 and play king g5, king h6. Okay. King f6 in the game, bishop e5, king g6, king f4, bishop e6. And now you stop the pawn, bishop a4. I like it. Bishop f8, and now e4. We got two passed pawns, and now it's much easier. After e4, bishop h6, king g3. Now black took, but it doesn't do anything. After a couple of more moves, bishop h3, bishop e8, King h6 and bishop f6. Black is simply lost. His king is entirely cut out and the pawns are just going to crush. Okay, let's do the next game. And now it's about too far advanced pawn. Let's go here, e6, knight f3, d5, and Catalan. Okay, nice. But this one, older line, so bishop g2, a6, queen c4, and now c5. Queen c2, b5, castles, and bishop b7. Okay, a4 and bishop e7. That's okay. Takes. Bishop g5, queen b6. Takes. AB. Because if queen b5, then it just runs into knight c3. So you take like this, and after exchanges, knight c3, castles, and then e3. Trying to block this diagonal and to move the rook. Rook c8, and now queen d3. And now the idea is to somehow force the pawn to move forwards. So he achieves that, and after knight a4, this he took on c5. Queen takes and rook d1. Okay, make some loft. And now queen d4. Exchanging queens. Which would make the b pawn a clear target. But actually here black should take, and after this to go for e5. And if, let's say, knight b3, then to just go rook c2, exchange everything and just go with the king f3, king e7, and I think he should hold this quite easily. But black doesn't do that, and he goes for queen c2. Queen c2 and knight e1, queen e2, takes, and now queen d2. But do you need to exchange now? Can you go just queen c4 and maybe not, maybe you have something like rook c1. This looks okay as well, I don't know. Okay, but black took on d2, rook d2, and now rook a1. King f1, rook b1, trying to tie this rook to the second rank, not to allow rook d4. King e2, and now knight d5 by black. If knight e4 happened, then check here and this move. Now you defend the pawn on b2 and you want to go rook b8 next to capture this pawn. So knight d5 was played, knight d3. And now rook h1. Wait, where was the mistake? Maybe here, maybe b3 here was the better choice. b3, and then if knight goes here, rook h1. And then just go here, rook d1. You might even take it. Although it seems a bit scary with the pawn on b3. Yeah, so what to do here? Knight d5, knight d3, rook h1, and then, well, here they mentioned b3, but this is bad because of rook d1, and after all this, the pawn on b3 becomes a target. After this, king d2, king c3, and then you collect the b pawn and you win the game. So black tries this, rook h1, h4, and now f5. Probably just trying to stop e4, rook d1 and rook h2. And now you have this move. Now this move stops g5 because of capture and, well, sorry, no. Because of this. And if rook h3, then you take it. So black goes here, knight f3, and now rook h3. And now if you try to trap the rook by this and king f1, king g2, now black has knight g4, and after this knight h2. So white goes for this, king f7, and now check, here, check, and you take the pawn. Knight e4, and now knight d3, g5 takes, takes, rook c8, and now g4. So you basically fix the kingside pawns, but you want to go rook h2 probably as black, and to put some pressure on g3. But now white goes for this. Takes, and now rook h1. Rook c2 and king e7. Aha, if he went for rook b5, this and b4, then you have rook b2, and you cannot make any progress because you need to keep the king to defend the pawn. And if you do this, well, then especially now there's no progress, because now the king goes here to e5 if black goes for something like this. Let's say this. I think this works out for black, because he can just shuffle his rook. I think it's a draw, yeah, I think. So rook c2 was played and king e7, and now e4. To break these pawns, rook a1, king d3, king d6, takes, and now king c4. Now the pawn on f2 is defended. The queen side can be conquered, and that's it. This, check, king d6, and now b3 first. Rook e1, king c4, and now king c6. Wait, what? King c6. Aha, king d3, king d5. If king b5, now there is this move and the king enters via e3 to f4, and he collects all the pawns. So king d5 is the best, but there is this move. Rook b1, king c3, king c6. Check. This one, rook c1, king d4, king d6. Now push. Rook e4, and just go here, rook e8. We take this one. And after g4, rook d5, king g6. Black resigned, because black is just cut off so many files. Okay, let's go for the next one, and this one's gonna be the last today. This time we have some bad pieces, and let's check this game out. We have e4, c5, and this one. Queen c7, g3. Rook e1, bishop d7, and now take on c6. If bishop c6, then knight d5 is very strong. And then this. Okay, but black goes for bc. Knight a4, e5, and now c4. So now white wants to go c5 next and to undermine those pawns. And bishop e7 is played, but I think c5 is better here, just fixing the structure in the center, although it cuts every single possibility of counterplay. After this, there's no d5 as a move, so you can see why black didn't want to go for this. But he plays bishop e7, and now there's c5. After which black castles, and now take and take. And now we have a weak structure. Bishop g5 by white, bishop e7. And now queen c2 by white. h6. Oh. Bishop e3. Rook a b8 and rook a c1. This move h3, knight h7, and then bishop c5, just exchanging the bishop to make the outpost for this knight from a4. And now some trades are going to happen, and that's something that that white wants. Knight g5, but takes, knight c5, and now this move. Now if white captures, there is rook b6, and after this knight d4, and black at least has some counter chances. So actually here white took on e6, queen 6, and now b3. Still there is this weak pawn structure, so there's that. Queen e7, and now queen c3. And now he wants to play bishop f1, but he doesn't want to allow a5, I guess. Rook b4. And now h4. Tries to go bishop h3 to stop bishop d7. Black goes here, and there's rook d3. Rook d3, trying to go queen d2 and to get rook d8 next. King h7. Well, here if c5, then this move, c4, bc, bishop f7, and then c5. Wow, that's quite interesting, because after this we have two passers and it's enough to win. But he went for this one, bishop h3, bishop g6, and now this move. Boom. Okay, so queen f8 now, queen takes, and black just falls apart. Rook takes e4, because if bishop takes, there's capture, queen c5, and then just take on f6, and this is only one check. So rook takes, but still there is this. King h2, and now f5. Also bishop e4 doesn't do enough. After this, queen b4, queen f6, this move, and even f3 works. I mean, it's the only move, but still works out. And you escape somehow, which is quite strange. Okay, so after this there was f5, rook d6, and now bishop h5. But now you have this, e4, queen d5, bishop g4, this one. Oof. What is that? And then this, to defend against queen f2, queen e7, and black resigned, because after rook e8 it's over. Rook e8, rook e6, it's game over. After this there's this check, and then this move. So yeah, that's basically it. A short session today, suitable for YouTube, I think. These sessions about 3 hours and longer, they're not realistic, I think. I might change it later, but for now I think this is the optimal length, about 40 minutes. So thank you so much for watching.